Here's a guy who thinks he got an atheist to consider the possibility that God exists.
Are you Muslim or Christian? So I only believe in one less God than you. So that's how I like to look at it. You know?
One less God?
Yeah.
How so? What do you mean? Like, you said we believe in one God, you don't believe in the God.
I mean, I have a lot of religious friends, right? And then they're always like, why don't you go to church with us? Why aren't you religious? And I'm like, why don't you go to the Buddhist temple with me or something, you know? Why don't you go to a Hindu temple or anything? I only believe in one less God than you, so what's the difference?
Apologists often miss the point of this argument, which is to point out that religious folks don't subject their own religion to the same level of scrutiny or skepticism that they apply to other religions, while atheists are often equally skeptical of all theistic religions.
I think the difference would be, I guess, what you substantiate that in. Like if you say, you're saying that there is no God, so then you would have to, that means you have an explanation.
I'm not saying there is no God.
There you are, you're an atheist.
Huh?
You're an atheist. An atheist is one who does not believe a God exists. You're saying there is no God.
Not believing that a God exists is not the same as saying that no God exists.
I'm just saying that there's no evidence to substantiate that, so why would I believe
What would evidence look like to you?
Given that the idea of God seems nonsensical, it's hard to imagine what evidence for such a thing would look like. How could you possibly have evidence of something that exists independent of time and space, as apologists often define God? I don't know how to conceive of such a thing, so I don't have any idea how evidence for such a thing would look. Before I could tell you what evidence of a God looked like, you would have to give me a definition of God that I recognize as coherent.
I don't know. I always tell people I would need to become like a prophet.
You said you would need to become a prophet?
I would need to be a prophet to believe in God.
What about a simple guy? You can't be a simple guy and believe in God?
I mean, he would need to speak to me, and at that point, I'm a prophet, right?
You can't see the evidence. I don't think that's how you live your life. Like, I don't think that you live your life by you have to see it, touch it, feel it in order for you to believe something.
In order for me to believe a claim is true, I have to understand what it means first. I don't understand what it means to say that a God exists. With respect to claims I do understand, I definitely hold different beliefs to different doxastic standards. Some claims I will suspect are true simply on the basis of testimonial evidence. Some claims I won't find convincing unless I can see evidence for it with my own eyes. It largely depends on how consistent the claim is with my most consistent experiences.
Not necessarily. I mean, there doesn't need to be anything tangible. But he hasn't presented himself to me. People have tried presenting him to me.
Then what would you say created all of it? How did all this get here?
If by all this he means the universe as a whole, I don't believe that it ever did get here. I believe that it has always been here. Even if it has only existed for 13.7 billion years, it is still the case that there was never a time when nothing existed. Things that have never not existed don't need creators. A necessary condition for something needing a creator is a time prior to that thing's existence. Things for which there was never a time prior to their existence do not need creators. Something does not need to be brought into existence if there was never a time when it didn't already exist. And there was never a time when space-time didn't already exist.
I don't know, but I don't know.
Okay.
Like, being an atheist, I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm just saying I don't have the answers.
You're saying that it's not God.
I'm saying I don't have the answers, is what I'm saying.
All right, so what is your reason for saying that it's not God? What is your reason for that?
I'm not saying it's not God. I just don't have the answers.
I suspect this apologist uses the term atheist in such a way as to exclude agnostics.
Okay, but you are saying this. Okay, when you say it's not, you're an atheist. An atheist literally is atheism, no God, theos.
Or it could mean atheism, no theism.
Call me agnostic then. I guess I'm closer to agnostic.
So you don't know if God exists or not?
No.
Okay, so you're not saying for certain that God doesn't exist, but do you lean more toward that he doesn't or that he does?
It's hard for me to put that in any such way, but to me, there's a lack of evidence in the field that he does exist.
All right, so let's talk about that. Like, what do you say? What are you considering evidence as? Because evidence points to, I guess, the reality or truth, right? Mm-hmm. So what would be evidence that would point to God for you?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I really don't know.
How could you distinguish evidence for God from evidence for much more well-established phenomena? If you heard a voice claiming to be God's, why would it make more sense to infer that it was God's voice and not a sign of schizophrenia? Cases of schizophrenia are so common that even if a God does exist and does speak to people, it would still make more sense to interpret hearing a voice claiming to be God to be a hallucination than the real thing. Even if there is a God who does miracles, it would still be more rational to interpret a perceived miracle to be an illusion or a heretofore undiscovered natural phenomenon than something that God did.
What evidence there possibly could be.
What about...
I've read the Bible, and then,
What about creation itself?
Really, creation itself.
Yeah, the world itself, the sky, the universe, you, animals, the eyeball, the heartbeat.
I don't know.
DNA.
How do you know that any of that is creation?
Let me ask you this: because you a man of science at all?
I would say so.
Okay. So when we follow the scientific method, things that we know that point to things that we understand as fact or whatever, it has to be observable first.
I would say that it has to be coherent first. If you can't understand a claim, you're not going to know how to judge whether it is consistent with observation. Theism hasn't passed that hurdle yet.
It has to be observable, and then we experience it, right? We experiment with it, maybe test it out if we can, or whatever. But that's how we come to our conclusions. So looking at the observable world, have you ever experienced something being as ordered as this is and designed as it is, coming from something that is not intelligible?
I think he means intelligent, not intelligible. It doesn't seem to me that the natural world is designed. It is orderly, and if he's asking whether I've seen orderly things exist without being created by an intelligence, well, yeah. I see no reason to believe that any of the order in nature comes from an intelligence. I think this guy is inferring that because intelligence can take disordered things and impose order upon them, that intelligence must therefore be the cause of all order, and that the default state of reality must be chaos. I think he's affirming the consequent. He thinks that since intelligence can impose order, that whenever there is order, it must have been imposed by an intelligence.
I don't know. This is all I've experienced, you know?
Right. So everything that you experience, this is what I'm going on.
I wouldn't say that it's from something intelligent necessarily.
But, okay, so that's what I'm asking.
I think there were a lot of pressures that naturally set things up the way.
But,
I believe in evolution, so...
That's good and all. If you believe in evolution, then you believe, you understand that life comes from life.
When people make this argument, I always wonder what they mean by life. What definition of life are they using? They seem to define it as an almost supernatural phenomenon rather than a natural one. I take the word life to mean any system of self-replicating nucleotide chains. Obviously, the very first self-replicating nucleotide chain could not have come from a previous self-replicating nucleotide chain. It would have to have been built from disconnected nucleotides that were assembled by some other means. Since that other means would not itself be a self-replicating nucleotide chain, it would not be life. When apologists say that life only comes from life, they clearly want to make the point that life was created by God, which they also see as being some kind of life form. If God can be a form of life, then what is life in the apologist's view?
Life doesn't come from non-life.
I believe in selective pressure.
What is that?
I don't even know if that's the right term.
Natural selection?
Not natural, I guess kind of, but I just think that over the course of millions of years, things will naturally optimize themselves.
So you have a faith in that?
I don't have a faith in that. I infer it to be the case from observation.
Yeah.
You're expressing a faith, okay. But
I don't know about a faith in that necessarily.
But it is, because
the data proves it.
What data?
Well, you can actually see it happening. You can directly witness life forms mutate in such a way as to increase their prevalence in their gene pool. The Lenski experiment is a clear example of this. Bacteria that developed a mutation that allowed them to metabolize a new food source outcompeted bacteria that did not have that mutation.
When you look at past species, reasons they went extinct or something, they couldn't metabolize as fast. But megalodons, they went out because there was not enough food. So naturally things became smaller.
We're talking about life itself. We're talking about why there is life in the first place.
There is life in the first place because nucleotides started forming chains that could then make copies of themselves.
Life always comes from life. That's a scientific principle.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
So if life always comes from life, then the first life in the universe comes from an original life source.
Which, for some reason, magically does not need to come from a previous life source. Apologists who make this argument never seem to understand how self-defeating it is. Life needs to come from life, therefore there must have been life that didn't need to come from life? That's a contradiction that apologists treat as an argument.
That's just what we've observed scientifically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that would mean that the physical life that we see here had to come from something beyond that, a life that is beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
If life is not essentially biological, then what is it?
What would you call that? What does that point? That points to a life beyond our realm, is what I'm saying.
Why does it have to be from beyond our realm, whatever that even means? Even if there has to be some life that has always existed, why couldn't it have always existed within our realm?
You have a great point. I think you're making some great points right now.
Yeah.
The only point of contention I would say is, like how there's so many answers to that question.
There's not. That's the point. There isn't. Like there's okay. Let me ask you.
There's Christianity. There's Islam, Judaism.
Oh, so you're at
Hinduism.
so basically you're saying who is that? You're saying who is that God, or how do you know that your God is the right one? That's basically what you're asking, right?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying there's like how can you put an answer on it necessarily? Any one of these. How can you put an answer on
Evidence. We follow where the evidence leads.
Even if Christianity is true, even if Jesus did rise from the grave, resurrections are so rare that it would still be more rational to infer that the stories about the resurrection are the result of lies, mistakes, or hallucinations than an actual miracle. So I don't see how the evidence for Christianity could make it reasonable to infer that it's true, even if it is true.
If the evidence shows that, one, there is a source of life, evidence points to a source of life, so we know that a life exists beyond us.
I don't think anyone disputes that there's a source of life. I just believe that the source of life is the chemicals of which every life form is composed. I see no reason to believe that the source of life is some magical form of life, whatever that's even supposed to mean.
That is the source of all life. And then we look at the evidence for who that life is. Is it who the Christians claim it is? Is it who the Muslims claim it is? Buddhists?
Christians and Muslims both believe that it was the God that Abraham worshipped. Buddhists don't believe that any creator God exists.
Like, I mean, what do you think happens after you die?
The same thing that happens to a song when you stop singing it. You just end.
I don't know. I have to find out.
If there was a heaven and if heaven and hell was real, wouldn't you want to know that?
I wouldn't understand what that would even mean, so I don't know how I could know that. Both seem predicated on the idea that your mind can exist independent of your brain, which, given that your mind is something that your brain does, is an inconceivable contradiction.
You wouldn't want to wait till you die to find out.
I guess I would want to know that, yeah. There's no way to know that until I die.
No, that's not true, brother, because we have somebody that's came and told us, he died and rose again on the third day and told us, hey guys, there is an afterlife, there is a heaven and a hell.
Jesus did not, in fact, say that. He was an apocalypticist. He believed that when you die, you stay dead until Judgment Day, at which time everyone who is good is brought back to life to live in the kingdom of heaven, which is in fact on earth rather than an afterlife. The idea of some supernatural realms where people's disembodied souls go to be rewarded or punished is not even in the Bible. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.